Hi, and welcome back to RPMbassy. Thank you very much for checking out the last video. As I said before, we're on our top 20. We're now on number 8. And I've got to say, putting this top 10 together, top 20 has been so difficult. It's changed so many times. And I try to be eclectic with it and trying to be real, i.e. stuff that I listen to a lot, regardless of what it is. So my number 8 is the classic Iron Maiden album, Number of the Beast. Yeah. So this album came out in March 1982, and it was the third album by the UK heavy metal act Iron Maiden. It's also the first album to have Bruce Dickinson on vocals, and it was the last one to have Clive Burr, their drummer, in the band. So it was the last record that he did. What I loved about this album, because I mean I was into kind of like, you know, post-punk and new romantic and stuff, but I didn't want to tell everyone I liked Iron Maiden because, you know, it's different. But I loved everything about this band. I loved their kind of their Eddie mascot, and I loved their music, and I loved the material they're talking about, because always talking about, you know, death and all this kind of stuff, which I loved as a kid. When this album came out, it's the artwork that kind of blew us away, really. So you've got Eddie, you know, with a puppet of the devil, but the devil's also got a smaller Eddie on a puppet. So, you know, reading into this album, researching this album, the reason he did that was who's controlling who. And I kind of like that. I kind of get it now. Also, when this artwork was done, it wasn't done for this album. It was done for the artwork for a track of theirs called Purgatory. But the manager of the band decided that it was too good for that single and wanted to use it for the album. And also, just a bit of a fact, this is the original album, and there was a mistake on it. It had a blue background. And for the 40th anniversary, they did the black background, which is supposed to have had it the first time around. But it was too late. It had a blue background, so the original's definitely got the blue background. 3 singles were released from this album. First was Run to the Hills, everyone knows that track. Then there was the most interesting fact about this, Number of the Beast. And it was written by Steve Harris, and he had a nightmare after watching Omen 2. So he wrote this song because of that. But the intro to this, everyone knows it. So the track opens with a spoken introduction from the Book of Revelation, read by actor Barry Clayton. I always thought it was Vincent Price.
Yeah.
But it's not. The reason why they did ask Vincent Price to do it, but so they'd been recording this like beginning of 82, end of 81. He wanted £25,000 just to do the intro. But I think Barry Clayton did a really good job because I thought it was Vincent Price. The other thing on this as well is some of the songs are written by Bruce Dickinson. But he was still in contract with his previous band, Samson. Yeah. So he couldn't actually have any writing credit because of that. But he did actually write things like Run to the Hills, Hallowed Be Thy Name. So he did write a couple of tracks on there. Other interesting facts about this, there's a track on here called, they released Run to the Hills, and the B-side, they had a choice between 2 tracks, Total Eclipse or Gangland. Yeah. So they decided to use Total Eclipse of the B-side, put Gangland on the album, which Steve Harris has since said it was a mistake. It should have been the other way around. So, on the original version, you've got Ganglands. On the 40th anniversary, which has literally just come out, 40 years of Iron Maiden, it now has Total Eclipse.
Oh, nice.
So it is where the album's supposed to have been, because it did say it was a big mistake. Yeah, and this album kind of catapulted, you know, Iron Maiden into the, not just the heavy metal, but the charts, the whole lot. So people like me got to hear about them as well. I went to see them at the Beast tour as well, all them years ago. And all I still got it somewhere, it's like a wristband, like from here to here, studded with Iron Maiden on it, which I couldn't wear as a new romantic, but I still had it anyway. And I've been a fan of theirs since, and I'm sure in a future video we're going to be doing like my top 10 Iron Maiden albums or something like that. I'm sure there's going to be something to do with Iron Maiden. But that is my number 8, and it's Iron Maiden, Number of the Beast. Alright, Mark, what's your number 8?
So my number 8, pretty classic album. I know you're not a big fan of them.
How did you know that?
But yeah, Brothers in Arms by Dire Straits. I mean, this album does kind of speak for itself in many ways. 10 times platinum in the UK. I think it's like the 8th best-selling album in UK history. Obviously, it came out right around the time where like CDs were becoming like really accessible. Caught that wave just at the right time to be able to have like high quality audio, and I think this album especially is kind of engineered to a T for like really pristine listening. Really, really particular thing about it, the all of the rim shots on the drums, like they're so crisp. There's something about them that honestly, it's one of the small things on this album, but genuinely is something that actually brings me back to it. But yeah, like it, you know, everything that could be said about this album has been said. Really, I am quite surprised though, finding out that the initial reviews when it came out, a lot of them were really negative. Like a lot of people really, really disliked it. And it's not until kind of had its first kind of wave of the release that critically, that was when it got its recognition. But obviously by that point, it had already been bought by millions and millions of people anyway. In terms of the tracks on there, most people know every single one, but you've got stuff like Walk of Life, Latest Trick, which that's one thing I dislike about this pressing. All of the early pressings, they didn't actually have the trumpet intro.
All right, okay.
Or the trombone intro. I can't remember if it's trumpet or trombone. On Your Latest Trick, which kind of like ruins the song for me. Like, it's still a great song, but it just jumps straight into the saxophone solo and like the main bulk of the song. But the newer pressings, because there's, you know, in terms of engineering, they've managed to fit a little bit more onto one side of the disc or what have you. They've got the full intro on there now. If you're getting this album, that's the one to grab, I would say, because you get the full album rather than, you know, a slightly slimmed down one.
I mean, I've got to say, when the album came out, what year?
I think it was 85, yeah.
85, that late? I thought it was a little bit earlier than that. But Ari, I just remember that stuff coming out and everyone was listening to them, and I tried to listen to it, and I just couldn't get into it. So there's no Dire Straits in my collection. There is a little pot of artists that I throw particular artists into it, and they're in there. But they're definitely in there. But I tried to listen to them. I can get that they're really good, but it just doesn't. And that obviously Brothers in Arms, everyone knows that track, and obviously the title track as well. My little story about that is I was managing a studio in Greenwich, and there's a knock at the door, and it was Knopfler, the lead singer.
Yeah, Mark.
And they were recording, because they used to practice in the studio that we were in, and so they were recording. He's really tall. He's really tall. But yeah, so I have a little story about that. But yeah,
nice. Yeah, as I said, like for me, this is kind of something to kind of analyze in terms of production. There's not many albums, even with this early pressing, with what I consider like, you know, the botching of a single song. There's not that many albums that like sound so good in terms of a vinyl pressing, like it really across the board, and you know, in terms of every version that there is. As I said, you know, it came out with like CD and cassette and everything. It just sounds like fucking great on every single one. And I think, to be fair, I think it did get like a Grammy. If it didn't win, it definitely got a nomination for like engineering or production.
Yeah.
Which I think is very fair for this album to receive, because it, you know, that at the very least, I'd say for anybody who's not a fan of Dire Straits, and you know, clearly a lot of people aren't. You know, it was in Shaun of the Dead. You know, they throw a zombie for a reason and everything, but like with certain other bands where like people don't necessarily like them for the music, but they like them for the composition or the production. This, I think there can be, you can find some things to appreciate just on the production and the engineering alone. So yeah, that's why that's in my list.
I'll have a listen to it at some point. I'll let you know. All right. Cool. See you in the next video.